Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
Tuesday, May 19th at 10:30 a.m., it's morning baseball. Wednesday, May 20th at 6:30 p.m., have a pawsome time at Bark in the Park. Thursday, May 21st at 6:30, it's Pride Night with $5 Bud or Bud Light draft beer. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Look, I think, Sid, here's what you ought to do. Watch what happens in Los Angeles. And if Spencer Pratt wins the mayor's race in Los Angeles, I want to see Sid Rosenberg hire the same social media guys and the same social media team that Spencer Pratt is using, and then go work for Sid Rosenberg, and then you run for mayor.
Here's the guy I want to see, and I don't know if his wife would let him, and I've told him this already, and KT McFarland was on his show the other day, and she said this too, if you know KT, right? Yeah. She used to work for Trump and all of that, right? Sid Rosenberg, the mayor of New York City. Why not? My buddy Sid for freaking mayor. Now, I know I've talked to Sid about that. His wife is not crazy about him being the mayor, but there you go.
Hey, next time you talk to Sid, make sure you tell him you brought it up on our podcast.
I will.
Let me tell you something about Sid. You know, I have to say, Joe, every once in a while I get a little tired of him because he talks about himself all the time, but that's the way anybody does. We all do it, so I don't hold it against him. He would make head and shoulders over what we have today. It would be a complete turnaround, and it would be so refreshing to get an ordinary guy in there and to try to do the job. They couldn't go with Curtis Sliwa. He ran a bad campaign. I backed Curtis all the way. But Sid's I'm going to tell you know something. The fact that you mentioned Sid, Sid's a polarizing figure to a certain extent. You're going to get people say, "Oh, what a bunch of come on."
Yeah,
but for the most part, he loves Israel. He's going to do the right thing for New York. He sees the crime getting out of control. He's going to do his due diligence. He would do a great job as mayor. I really believe that.
List keeps growing. That was KT McFarland on Friday's show, and then a podcast that the legend, my dear friend Joe Benigno, does with a guy named Ralph Romeo. Thank you for the kind words, Ralph. Nice guy. Ralph's a nice guy. His wife, I believe her name is Cindy. She's a nice lady, too. But the list keeps growing. Rachel Campos, as you know her, from Fox and Friends. She was texting me last night. Laura Trump, who will join me at 8:30 this morning, on air, basically begged me to run. So I don't know, but the list keeps growing. I didn't expect Joe Benigno to bring that up during a podcast where he was talking about the Mets and the Knicks or that epic comeback victory last night. But while I've got the legend on the phone, still doing a big-time Saturday show on WFAN and now here weekly with us, I do want to thank you, Joseph. That was very, very kind. I know you meant it. You're right about Danielle. You're really right about that. But at the very least, thank you for mentioning me, and I appreciate that.
Well, you know, Sid, I love you, and with the disaster that's the mayor right now in New York City, boy, what a contrast that would be. How you would turn it around. You know, you get your buddy Lebedo there, and Scott Lebedo, get him involved. What's her name? Palladino, right? Vicky Palladino. She's as tough as nails.
Yep.
Get her in there as well. You got Tish still there as the commissioner, there as the police commissioner, and you got something going, bro. I mean, New York City would turn around in a freaking second. This anti-Semitism BS would be out the window. It would be. I should be alive to see Sid Rosenberg, mayor of New York City.
I love you, Joe. Thank you for that. The aforementioned Scott Lebedo will join me coming up in about 50 minutes. We're going to go from Joe Benigno to Mike Lawler, who is going to host President Trump in Rockland County on Friday. I'll be there. To Scott Lebedo, to Laura Trump. So we got a great guest list today. And again, I appreciate it. I'm still pondering it. We'll see if Danielle moves. I doubt she will.
When is what? I'm not even sure. What do they get? 6 years in New York? How many years does the mayor get?
4.
Yeah.
4.
It is only 4. Okay,
yeah, that's it.
I wasn't 100% sure.
4 years will be enough time to listen. The city was in terrible shape before. Bill de Blasio was the worst mayor ever. This guy will be worse. Eric Adams, with all of his bravado and all his tweets, he was awful for 3 out of 4 years. He got better the 4th year because he sold his soul to President Trump, and and Tom Homan and Jessica Tisch figured out the crime situation to a certain extent here in New York, but he was a bad mayor. So you had awful Bill de Blasio, bad Eric Adams, maybe the all-time worst here in Mamdani. So you're talking about right off the bat, at the very least, a 16-year run of lousy leadership. This city may not be able to come back from that. That's why I'm even considering this. And when I look at Curtis and 14% and 7%, he's been a joke. It's been a joke. Or these other candidates, and, I like John Schell. He may run. I like Michael Rappaport. He may run. Jessica Tisch may run. Julie Menon may run. God bless them all. I like them all. But this Republican Party needs a good shot in the ass in this city, in this state. Look, we just had your governor election last year, and Mikey Muhammad Sherrill, who's awful, right, beat Jack Ciattarelli. We're in the same situation here. If my friend Bruce Blakeman doesn't beat Kathy Hochul, and we've got to go through at least 3 years, because Mamdani's not going anywhere until 2029, at least 3 years of Hochul and Mamdani, it is over. New York is just about dead, but at that point, you pull the plug.
Yeah. Hey, look, I mean, bro, I will say it again. With the disaster that New York is, I don't know, but everything I read about Bruce Blakeman, I don't see how he's winning. I mean, it looks like he's behind if you want to, you look at the polls. I mean, I don't even know if anybody really knew who he was. I thought Elise Stefanik was going to run, and I guess that for whatever reason, that didn't work out for her. But, boy, New York is in so much trouble, Sid. I mean, it would be off the charts if you took over as mayor. You'd be a combination of Rudy Giuliani and Bloomberg. I don't love Bloomberg, but he was a good mayor. You'd be off the charts, Sid.
Well, we'll see. I love you for thinking. I respect you so much, and when you say that, it means a lot to me. But we'll get back to that mayor conversation, I'm sure, 1,000 times on this show. But let's talk about what's going well in New York, because nothing really is. But what's going well in New York happens to be on 33rd and 7th. Joseph, you've been a Knicks fan your whole life. You're in your 70s. You look great, but you're in your 70s. You know this team, this organization, the history. You were there from basically day one. What you saw last night, you've never seen before. In fact, it's only happened like that one other time between the Clippers and the Grizzlies back in 2012, when this epic comeback is over last night, and the Knicks have now won their 8th consecutive playoff game and basically sucked the life out of Cleveland. What were you thinking late last night?
I'm thinking this is a championship caliber team, Sid. I mean, I think last night, with all the blowouts, blowing out Atlanta like they did, blowing away the Sixers like they did, this was an epic comeback. This was one of the I was trying to think of a greater Knick win in the playoffs than what I saw last night. I got to tell you, I really can't. Considering that they were Sid, for 40 minutes, this team was dead in the water.
You know what win I loved, and again, it wasn't 22-point comeback. But right. I hated the Miami Heat so much, hated them. When Allen Houston hit that shot, that was 99. That was, and they went on to lose to San Antonio the last time we got to the NBA Finals. That was a big one for me. But you're right. Go on. You're right. Nothing like this epic comeback.
Bro, they were dead in the water. I mean, let's be honest about it. They couldn't make a shot. They're turning the ball over left and right. They're getting killed inside. They're getting killed on the offensive glass. Jared Allen, Mobley, getting all these offensive rebounds. Mitchell's going in for layup after layup. I'm like, they're losing this game. And here's the other thing that's going through my mind, and I've documented this many times. The Knicks have never won a playoff series when they lost game one at home. Never. And even 3 times since 2021 that's happened, including last year with Indiana. So this is all going through my mind. They got to find a way to win this game. And, boy, all of a sudden the switch went on. Jalen Brunson took the game over. Somebody's got to – if I'm a Cleveland Cavalier fan, somebody's got to tell me why Kenny Atkinson continued to let James Harden, who's about as good defensively as I would be against Brunson just killed him. He just left him out on that island one-on-one. Brunson got every shot he wanted, made every shot he wanted. Just incredible. And And let's give credit to two other guys that really got to get big credit in this game. Number one is Mikal Bridges. This guy didn't score a point in Game 2 against Atlanta in the first round of the playoffs. People are talking about Mike Brown's going to bench him, this and that. Ever since that, this guy's been unbelievable.
Yeah, I was going to say, not just last night.
Right.
We've heard time and time again, the Knicks, they gave up five draft choices, right, to get Bridges from Brooklyn. And like you said, has a big game against Atlanta. Get rid of him. He's no good. And the rest of the series against the Hawks, Philadelphia, and last night with those 2 big threes, he's been great. And while you're going to finish your statement, I want to throw Landry in there because these guys, they never played with Tom Thibodeau. Mike Brown is playing some of these guys are coming up big.
Yeah, he put Josh Hart on the bench. He was having a tough shooting night last night, and Shamet hit 3 monster threes. I mean, that one to tie the game that bounced up and came back down again. Just unbelievable, bro. The one in overtime that kind of really sealed the game. Just unbelievable. Anunoby got hot finally. You could see how rusty he was for not playing for 2 weeks or whatever since he played. He really couldn't get off for his 3-point shot. He got going in the overtime, made some big baskets, some big free throws. Bro, and I'll keep saying it. They're 9 down. They need 7 more wins to win the championship. I don't want to hear about, we're going to get to the finals. No, they got to win. This is it. And when you have to slay, look, they have a 53-year dragon that is hanging over their head, Sid. 53 freaking years. And when you have to slay dragons like that, you have to do things in like epic fashion. And last night was epic. And I'm telling you, you got to feel good about this team going. You really do. I don't fear any team. What they showed me last night tells me that this team is a legitimate championship team. Now they got to go out there and do it.
It's funny. I know. I had Mike Breen on the show yesterday, the Hall of Fame NBA voice and the voice of the Knicks. He can't do it for him, but he does me. It's great. And he said they're great too. And I said, Mike, what's happening now is even before this epic comeback win last night, was that the Knicks fan, they have these expectations that getting to the finals is not enough. The Knicks fan, if they beat Cleveland, now they're up 1-0. If they beat Cleveland and lose to Oklahoma City or San Antonio, the Knicks fan is not going to be disappointed. They're going to be angry. And you didn't disagree, and you seem to be that guy right now.
Absolutely. No, they got to win, Sid. Enough. I've seen the finals. I've seen them losing the finals in 94, in 99. It's time to win the freaking championship. And if they don't win it this year, Sid, when are they winning it? This is the best team they've had. In all due respect to the Patrick Ewing years, and I've said this before, Patrick, Oakley, Starks, Sprewell, Camby, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston, all those guys, all due respect, loved them. They went to the finals twice. They're not as good as this team. This team has fire. This team really reminds me, look, they got to win a championship, but they remind me of the championship team because of all these guys that can beat you. They have 6, 7, 8 guys that can all hit 3-point shots, let's be honest. And on any given night, that guy can beat you. They have an unbelievable player in Jalen Brunson, who is probably the greatest free agent signing in the history of New York sports, in all due respect to Reggie Jackson.
Wow.
Jalen Brunson is starting to get into that category.
Now, be careful. Be careful, though. But Reggie won 2 World Series, got to 3.
He did, but you know what, Sid? Think about this. You're right. But that team also went to the World Series the year before Reggie got there.
They got swept by Cincinnati.
They went to the World Series, though. This team,
I know.
They've been. They were in the abyss for 20 years.
Well, let me ask you this, and stick with Brunson and get back to the rest of your statement, because I don't disagree with you necessarily, but Reggie, that's law right there. You're messing with the gods.
Well, that's the status that Brunson has right now.
Okay, so where do you put Brunson? And again, he hasn't won yet. That's a big deal. So you're not putting him over Walt Clyde Frazier, who won 2 championships.
No,
where do you put Brunson right now, after another big effort last night, on the list of all-time great New York Knicks?
Well, look, he's not Clyde. He's not Willis Reed. He's not Ewing. I mean, I can't put him there. It's tough to put him ahead of a guy like Dave DeBusschere as well, who's just
really
unbelievable.
He's better than DeBusschere.
Right,
Stop
he's
it.
Closing in. Let me.
Listen. DeBusschere was a nice, very good player.
No, he was a great. No. You're wrong, bro. You got to remember this. When they made that trade for DeBusschere with Walt Bellamy and Butch Colmires for DeBusschere, that turned it around. That was it. that solidified.
But he was never the star of that team. He was.
But that just
Brunson's the star.
That just shows you how deep that team is.
No, I know, but Brunson's if Brunson doesn't go out there and score 35 points, they're not going to win.
What? I'll put Brunson, the fifth guy, behind those guys. But I'll put him ahead of Bernard King. I will put him. Bernard only played 3 years there.
Carmelo,
I'll put him ahead of that. But you got to go win now. Now you got to go put that champ. You got to those two banners that are growing hair. They're so freaking old.
Yeah.
Now you got to. Now you got to put that banner up.
Okay.
He's there, bro. But I'll say this: I'm going to say it again. In the history of New York sports, maybe Reggie's the only other guy. Jalen Brunson is right there as far as the greatest free agent signing. And I want to say this too. Leon Rose. Okay, we never see the guy. The job that this guy has done is just off the charts. He gets Brunson as a free agent. He makes the trade to get OG Anunoby with Toronto. He trades quickly and Barrett for him. He gets Karl Anthony Towns in that Randall DiVincenzo trade. I didn't like it, but you look at it now. Bridges, like you said, for the 5 first-rounders. He steals Josh Hart from Portland. I mean, it's unbelievable. The job that this guy has done. And give Thibodeau credit here too, bro. Thibodeau, this is Thibodeau's team, and Mike Brown's done a great job. I mean, he really has the adjustments he's made, running the offense through Karl Anthony Towns, the different defensive matchups that he's had in this series in the playoffs so far, covering McCallum, taking Maxey out of it in the Philadelphia series. Brown's done a phenomenal freaking job, like you said, using the bench, which Thibodeau never did. The contributions you got from Shamet, the contributions you get from Clarkson, Alvarado, McBride, obviously Mitchell Robinson. Can Mitchell Robinson, by the way, can he make a free throw?
No, he can't do it.
It's just unbelievable. You tell me this guy is practicing free throws.
He can't do it.
Shoots these line drive, line drive shots. That come on.
It's funny.
Can he make a foul shot, Sid?
You just thanked everybody, and it was great. Leon Rose is a magician. He's been brilliant. You're right. He will go down as maybe the greatest GM in New York. I know Cashman's done pretty well. But I know it's been 17 years since a championship. But you didn't thank Jim Dolan, and Dolan was the guy that brought Leon Rose in. I say that because during the years of Isaiah and Larry Brown and Phil Jackson and all these guys, everybody was quick to murder Jim Dolan. But now that he hired Leon Rose and we're on the precipice of a championship, no one's second Jim Dolan outside of me, Craig Carton, and Mike Breen. Why not?
Well, I'll give credit to Dolan too, man. I mean, I got nothing negative to say about him. I love him. I mean, at this point, how could I not love Jim Dolan? I love him. I mean, what the turnaround at his franchise.
He is still employing Chris Drury. Don't forget that.
Well, that is true. I don't understand the Chris Drury thing. I mean, I think that Chris Drury and David Stearns are, they're brothers from a different mother. But I mean, that's we could get into that. But whatever. The turnaround, like I said. They were a laughing stock for 20 years. Let's be honest about it. This franchise was a joke for 20 years. Kobe Bryant, LeBron, these guys, they couldn't wait to come to the Garden and torch the Knicks for 60 freaking points or whatever. You had half the crowd rooting for the other team. It was a disgrace. And where they are now, 7 wins away from the parade, bro. And Mandami better have a freaking parade. I know he's taken away this stuff with the Veterans Day, which is a disgrace. But I'll say this, with all the woked-out liberal Knicks fans there are at Madison Square Garden, how could there not be a parade?
No, Mamdani is all over Twitter every time the Knicks win. In fact, there was a picture last week of Mamdani hanging out with Spike Lee at a Williamsburg bar.
I didn't see Spike.
He was there. He was there. But they were hanging out watching. They were watching a soccer game. Okay. Either way, Mamdani. I called out Mamdani and Kathy Hochul last week. The last thing I want to see is a tweet congratulating the Knicks. It's bad enough that Mamdani stink is all over Citi Field, and I was in Steve Cohen's box on Friday night. He couldn't have been nicer. But to see Mamdani and Hochul congratulate the Knicks, you think Mamdani has any idea who Rory Sparrow is, or Johnny Newman, or Sly Williams? Give me a damn break.
He didn't even know Patrick Ewing is. I mean, come on. I mean, what, you're talking about Johnny Newman. I mean, give me.
I love Jay New. That series of Bernard King and Jay New against Bird and the Celtics. How great was that? Come on.
Oh my, that was one. You know what? Even though they lost, you talk about the 1984 series when they lost the Celtics in 7.
That's right. That's right.
I was at Game 6, okay, of that series, right? I went to Game 6. I was a lot younger then, and what a game that was. Larry Bird missing a three at the buzzer. The Knicks wound up winning that game. Bernard went for like 40-plus in every game at the Garden. Unfortunately, he got killed in every game in Boston. But that was a tremendous series. Look, I mean, but those teams, Bernard, they only could go so far. Unfortunately, Bernard got hurt, and they should have never let Bernard go. They should have let Bernard play with Patrick Ewing. That didn't really work out.
Yeah.
But, bro, I like to say, let's just get back to this. I give Dolan credit. I got to give him credit. You know what? I really do. Look, when I look at some of the owners right now, I'm very down on Steve Cohen. I'm very down on Woody Johnson. Jim Dolan's pretty high up there considering what's going on right now with those other teams.
Well, listen, and it wasn't until Harbaugh came along and they drafted Jackson Dart. Mara wasn't going to popularity contests in the city either.
That is true.
And it has been 17 years for Steinbrenner since the Yankees won, so it's not been a great run here. No one even knows who the Brooklyn Nets owner is except for Evan Roberts.
Can I say this, too, about the Brooklyn Nets? They got so screwed in the lottery that they wound up with the 6th pick. If anybody thinks, and I'm going to say this, let me say this too. If anybody thinks that NBA lottery is not fixed, you're out of your mind. Going back to when the first lottery, when the Knicks got Patrick Ewing in 1985, that was fixed.
That was fixed? And David Stern fixed that to make sure Ewing got here.
How about this, Sid? Think about this. The San Antonio Spurs, think about this, okay? The San Antonio Spurs have won the lottery 3 times. Do you know who the guys were that were the number 1 picks those years? They would be David Robinson, Tim Duncan, and Victor Wembanyama. Do you think that the freaking league wants the San Antonio Spurs to be good?
I don't know why. Greg Popovich, I hated him.
Oh God, Greg Popovich.
They were great though. Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili.
They won 5 championships. I'm not taking that away from them. But come
it's fixed. No, you're right.
By the way, how
fixed.
about Mark Cuban with Don yesterday at the White House? Well, are you serious?
I know.
You see that?
I did, and Trump took a nice little jab at Mark. He forgave him for voting for Kamala Harris, but it was cute seeing my friend Dr. Oz. He was in these studios a couple of days ago, Dr. Oz, and Bobby Kennedy and all those guys all laughing. They weren't laughing with Mark Cuban, you moron. They were laughing at him. But look, if Mark is going to come around, better late than never. Does he still own a piece of the Dallas Mavericks, or is he out?
I don't think he does.
I don't think so either. I think Miriam Adelson, President Trump's big donor, I love her. I think she took it all away from Mark, so that's good news. Even though that team stinks, and they've got a anti-Israel guy in that basketball team who used to play here. His name is Kyrie Irving. I got to run, Joe Benigno, but you're just the best. You're the best ever. You're still the best ever. And thank you for hopping on this morning. We will talk throughout this series. Your Knicks are on their way, Joe Benigno, and thank you for the mayor stuff, too. I love you. Thank you so much.
Mayor Sidney Arthur Rosenberg. I want to be there at the inauguration for you. I want to be on the earth to see Sidney become mayor of New York City and turn the greatest city in the world around. That's what I want to see.
I love you. And Terry, you're great. Thank you, Joseph. Seriously, thank you. You're the best. There he is, the great Joe Benigno. Check him out every Saturday morning on WFAN, now a weekly contributor to our show right here. And he's saying 7 more. Not only does he want the Knicks to win the championship, does he think the Knicks will win the championship? He expects the Knicks to win the NBA championship. We'll see. Mike Lawler, Scott Lebedo, Peter King, William DeMeo, and Lara Trump all coming up. Just getting started on a Wednesday.